Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
And boy, are we having technical issues here.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
We are. We have the lovely Paul waiting to connect. So we're trying to get Paul to connect with us live on StreamYard another way. I've passed on all the information. We're just waiting for Chris Shearer to send the code, and then I will send the code to our guest.
We'll
hopefully it will work. Well, you can tell this is live. Do you know what I mean?
Like live TV.
Nothing like live TV. It's reality TV. So hopefully this will resolve itself. It's all Chris Shearer's fault, you know, for not being here. Otherwise, he would have just done his magic, Mr. Techno guy. Right, hold on. Bear with us, guys.
It's okay. We always end up sorting it, don't we? And
we always end up sorting it. We'll get there in the end.
I'm sure the viewers don't mind having a little chat with us.
No, I'm sure they don't mind. I must admit, my StreamYard's gone really weird. But anyway, so good morning, everybody. Sorry we're a bit late. Obviously, the summer is affecting the technical things, or should I say the energies around everybody. We have, I'm hoping to have another experiencer on this morning, Paul Ascough. We've had like a run of experiences, and we're still going through all the way to July to give you different perspectives of experiences. It's not all one thing. So we're just going to have a lovely little chat with each other, Karen. And so what did you do with the husband? You got rid of him?
Yeah, he's actually, our son plays rugby on a Sunday. So we obviously, we like to go and support him with that because he's doing so well at the moment.
Hold on.
And this is, he's playing away. So he had to take him today. So you've got me.
Brilliant. Right, he's waiting for the digital code, Chris Shearer. He's there. Right. So where's the digital code? Right. We're getting there.
This is easy, isn't it? We do this.
Women can do this stuff, guys. Good morning, everybody. Had a slight delay. Blame the energies. I've just told Paul, hold on. So Chris Shearer, open your email, send the code. We will do this.
Right.
Where there's a will, there's a way.
Well, he'll be doing that because he's sent me all the details of how to do it and everything, and obviously that's working now. He just needs that.
Yeah.
So
brilliant.
It's all good.
It's all good. Hold on 1 second. Excuse us, typing. I've just got to do this.
Well, that's okay. It's just one of those things, isn't it? And we'll it just gives us more anticipation waiting for our guests. That's all.
Yeah.
The build up for it, because I'm really looking forward to it actually, to listen to his experiences and.
Oh, hold on! I think I got it. God, guys, isn't this wonderful? Right, I'm sending that to Paul. We should have Paul with us soon. I think we've done it.
Always remote doing the technology and everything.
You know what I mean? I have to say, even when Chris Shearer's not here, I still bloody need him, don't I? Do you know what I mean? He's never going to let me live this down. So he's got the code. That's the code. Don't you just love live TV? Don't you just love it? Oh, well then, here we go. So we'll just wait for Paul to come. Yeah, so it's oh God, talk about heat wave. This is wonderful, isn't it? So have you had a busy week?
Actually, it was threatened to be very hot today. And when I was at the farm earlier, when the sun came through, it was unbelievably hot. But we're quite cloudy here at the minute, so we're not getting that big heat, which is good. But it's dry.
Okay.
So.
Right.
I'm excited.
So we're just, you know, that's quick share where we're just anticipating, waiting for Paul. Obviously, today the energies are really high. There's, you know, interference, and it is the energies. And we do have an amazing experiencer coming on, and you've got us two here. So there may be lagging, there may be this, there may be that. We're getting used to it. We're getting used to when the energies are around. It tends to affect internet, electricity, and
we had the annular eclipse as well, didn't we? With the sun.
Well, I don't know about the eclipse, but I certainly know about the energies, especially Paul, an amazing being, and hopefully this will go well, and the live code will last long enough for him to join us. So yeah, I've had a busy week in the Hot Fuzz Village. Built an extension to the art studio. I've been painting it and doing bits in the garden. I love it. Oh, hello, Paul. Hello. Can you hear us, Paul?
We got there in the end.
We got there in the end, Paul. I said it's the energies. It's definitely the energies, but this is live TV, and this is what you expect to happen. Reality show. Well, first of all, Paul, welcome to the show. Today, my co-host is Karen Shearer. It's normally Chris, but today he's gone with his son because he's gone off to do a rugby match. So children always come first. So, and Karen actually likes to get rid of Chris so she can do the co-hosting. Yes, she does. So, Paul, now we've settled down. It's a great honour to have you on the show. I've been, as you know, by texting, I've been really excited all week. And the conversation we had before we went into your theory, okay, we will touch upon that. The audience are going to love this. I have been talking to a few people to listen in for this today. However, before we get to the theories and the dimensions, could you share with our audience your experience with either ET or sentient beings or whatever terminology you choose to use, and then we'll take it from there to your theory.
Okay.
So yours.
I had no prior experience or, shall I say, interest in UFOs or anything. And we just moved, the family had moved to the edge of a village, and we had a really strict Victorian upbringing. And at the end of the day, my younger brother and I, our last job of the day was to take our dog for a walk and the neighbour's dog for a walk. We had a neighbour who was a war veteran, only had one lung, and so we were doing him a favour and exercising him. Once we'd taken the dog, put the dogs away, say goodnight to the parents, went to bed, that was the routine. So this day, we take the dogs for a walk, we came back, my father was in the front garden, looking at, he liked roses for some strange reason, but anyway, so my father was in the garden with his roses. We went into the garden to say goodnight. Now it was, I think, a long time ago, I think it was early September. It could have been the end of August, but I think it was early September. And it was just after my 11th birthday. So we're talking a lot of years ago, 1968. A lot.
We're the same age, so yes. A few years ago, Paul. Come on, a few.
But you know, then there was none of the air traffic that we have now. There was no such thing as police helicopters or ambulance helicopters. There was nothing like that. And we didn't have any normal airport anywhere near our location where we were. It was very rural on the border between South Yorkshire and West Yorkshire. Now, our home looked due east. And as we went into the garden, we were talking to my father, and he had a telescope. Now, he didn't have it then, but he had an interest. He wasn't an astronomer or anything, but he used to like to involve the children like you do. So we're looking at the sky, and we're looking due east. To the north, the sky was completely covered in cloud, and then it ended rather abruptly at this very straight bank of cloud, and the whole of the southern sky was completely clear. Now, it was dusk. The sky was just getting dark, and the larger constellations with a brighter magnitude you could just see. So my father's pointing to the sky, and like the dutiful children we were, because you don't do any other, you were looking and doing what you were told.
Yes.
So as we're looking at the sky, the three of us, suddenly out of this bank of cloud shot two UFOs, absolutely zooming out, and then they just stopped dead. And if you can imagine, they were like a V formation with one slightly to one side and slightly behind the other. And they just stopped. Now, there was nothing apparently joining them together. And they were perfectly spherical, brilliant pearly white light. And you could actually see the light from them reflecting off the edge of the bank of cloud. Now, as they came out and they were still, I got a voice in my head that said, "Oops, we hadn't meant to have been seen."
Ooh.
And it was dare I say, a friendly masculine voice. Now, that was the impression that I got. I may be wrong, but that's what I thought at the time. That was the impression that I got. And they were only still for a few seconds, perfectly circular, and then immediately stay in the same position relative to each other. They were moving again very, very quickly away from us, directly away due east towards what was then a coal-fired power station called Fort Marsh Power Station, which was probably about 8 miles as the crow flies. Now, the terrain we lived in at the time is very, very flat, the Don Valley, so you could see for miles. We had them in sight until they disappeared in the distance type of thing, probably for about a minute, from total, only round about a minute. However, when they were moving, it was like there was an atmosphere around them, like something surrounding them. And as they moved, they had this really tiny little teardrop shape that came off the back as they were moving away. But they still say, apart from that, they were still perfectly spherical. There was no sound whatsoever from start to finish. And they were quite large. I would say in modern coinage that we use now, like a 5p piece at arm's length. So they were quite a size. They were easily seen. There was no apparent rotation, no noise from start to finish, no lighting whatsoever, and nothing apparently joining them together. They just stayed the same position relative to each other throughout. And until they'd gone out in the distance. And the three of us were sort of sat there, mouths agape, looking at the sky. And my father was the first to speak. And he just said, "Well, there's nothing that we've got that can do that."
Wow.
But from my point of view, I wanted to know how I didn't know about it. How could something move like that? Because that's the one thing that I always say when people ask me, when you see something like that, it's so obvious, it's so bizarre, so odd, and so, for want of a better term, so obviously alien, that it can't be anything else. And so that's what set me off, if you like. That's what got me. I wanted to know the nuts and bolts. How could something physically move like that? And then the second thing was, how come I don't know about it? How come it isn't in the news? How come other people are reporting it? Why isn't it in the newspapers? Because it was obviously blatantly there for people to see.
No, I really resonate with that one. At the same age, I do resonate with that. Before we go on, can I ask, how was your father, your Victorian father, because I had those parents too, how was your Victorian father after that? Did he brush it off, or did it really shake his
No,
sense of being?
this is the funny thing. I wanted to know, and I got right into it then. And that's when I went off. I mean, there was no internet then. So you had to get on the local transport, whether it was train or bus, to go to the bigger cities, to even find a library or a bookstore that had a book on UFOs.
Yeah.
Because you just couldn't get them.
No.
But I don't think, and I asked my brother this same question about only a month ago, and he said it's one of those things in his life where, yeah, it happened, and then that's it. It was just a witness. And I think my father was the same. But having said that, my father did then get, and I don't know how he got it, but he got a copy of the Eric von Daniken Chariots of the Gods.
Yeah. Wow.
Which were good for me because it gave me something else to read.
Well, yeah, I mean, for him to get that book as well, he must have been a secret researcher, and maybe you weren't aware, because that's a powerful book. Back in the day, that book introduced so much more than just, the UFOs in the sky. Okay, right, moving on. You start on your search. What happens next?
Well, it was a two-pronged attack. See, that's something else. I absolutely believe that everything happens for a reason. There's no such thing as chance, no such thing as coincidence. And when the time is right in your life, that door will open. And if your time isn't right, it won't open. It's not going to happen. And it'll happen when you're ready for it to happen. And these two things happened at the same time. When we moved to this new house, it wasn't brand new, but it was new to us, obviously. It was about 100 yards away from the local spiritualist church. And my father had work colleagues that went to the spiritualist church. So we'd been brought up quite strict religious Church of England. And we then started attending the spiritualist church. Now, as children, you just do what your parents say, and that's it. Now, as time went on, and you get into your teenage years, obviously, like everybody, you think of other things. You're thinking of material things. You're thinking of the opposite sex. You're thinking of your life experiences. So religion tends to take a back seat, and everything else takes over. Part of the growing up, what everybody goes through. So as I got to be a teenager, that sort of the religious side of things stopped for me. And we sort of went to the church with my parents for things like weddings, funerals, baptisms, that sort of thing. Well, in spiritualism, it's called the naming ceremony. So I've actually been dedicated Methodist when I was tiny. Then I was baptized Church of England, brought up Church of England. And then I've been a named spiritualist as well. So
you've been around, Paul. You've been around.
But anyway, so
keep
moving
going.
on. This time I was a young teenager, going out to meet my friends, and it was sort of, we had to walk past the church to go anywhere. And as I'm walking past the church, there's this old guy and I can see him now, in a brown three-piece suit, stood outside the door having a cigarette, like they do. So he stood there, and as I'm walking past, there was a right small garden at the front with a wall around it. So I'm walking around this wall to go and meet my friend. And he looked up and he went, "Paul?" And I thought, and I didn't know him, but like all things, you sort of rationalise, you think, well, he must know my parents or something. And he said, "Have you got a minute?" So I just walked over towards him. And as I walked towards him, he reached in his pocket and he got out this scrappy bit of paper and a pencil that he'd got probably from the local bookkeepers or somewhere, and bookmakers, sorry. And he wrote something down, and then he showed me this piece of paper, and he'd written 3 letters on it, and it was UFO. So he says, "I've just been told by Spirit to show you this and to tell you that you're thinking along the right lines."
Wow.
Now I didn't even talk to my siblings or my parents about this and about being into UFOs and reading all the books and all the rest of it, because I was an avid reader. I used to read and read and read. And so I really don't know logically where it came from. So it must have been through spirit. So he said this, you're thinking along the right lines. Now, several things happened with church at the time, but I was told to go and see a medium called Betty.
Mm-hmm.
And now I never went to any normal services. I'd never done any what they call development circles, never attended anything like that. And as a teenager, that's the furthest thing from your mind normally.
Yeah.
So I was told to go and see this Betty. Anyway, I found out where she lived, and she was quite local. And I went and I knocked on the door. As I knocked on the door, this, what I took then as a teenager, this little old lady opened the door, and she says, Paul, you took your time getting here. I mean,
Oh, God.
yeah, what sort of a welcome was that?
Wow. I mean, it gets weirder. Trust me, guys. It gets weirder. Go on, Paul.
Yeah. And then she said, I want you to go and see Pearl. Now, as it happens, we knew Pearl because she'd got a daughter that we went to school with.
Mm-hmm.
And this daughter was quite good looking. So as a teenager, it gave some incentive to go and see Pearl. So I said, yeah, okay, I'll go see Pearl. Yeah.
Definitely, yeah, I'm going.
Anyway, I got on my local bus, went to see, she's only like the couple of villages away, 10 minutes by the local bus service. Went to Pearl, knocked on the door, and she opened. And the house was in complete blackness. All the curtains closed. The daughter wasn't there, and she was in the house on her own. And it turned out that she suffered from really debilitating migraines that used to knock her out for 3 or 4 days at a time.
Yeah.
Now she said, come in, and she came in, closed the door, and I followed her into it was a big house, into this big lounge. And there was not much furniture in the lounge, but a dining chair sat in the middle, like a carver sat up dining chair.
Yeah.
And she walked in front of me and went and sat on this chair with her back to me. So I'm walking behind her thinking, what's going on here? And then, as God's my judge, it was like something took over my body.
Yeah.
And I walked up to the back of her and put my hands on her shoulders. She said a prayer, and then it was like somebody was directing me what to do. And I lifted my right hand up near to the ceiling and my left hand just above her head. And then I felt the power. It was just like somebody had turned the switch on. And I could feel this vibration coming from wherever, down through my right arm, out through my left arm, and into the top of her head. And you could physically feel it. So it was like, I'm in this bizarre position, and I daren't move then, because I thought, if I move, I might disturb it. Or so I'm just stood there trying not to think about anything, but just playing statues sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then it can't have been much more than a minute, and the power just went off, and I physically felt it switch off. That was it. And I took my hands away, put them back on her shoulders, and this Pearl just got up, and with a big smile on her face, and she turned around and she said, you hide your light under a bushel. And I mean, as a young teenager, I didn't even know what that meant.
No.
And she just opened the curtains, put the kettle on, and 10 minutes later, I'm walking out, my mind going, what the heck just happened, you know?
Yeah, what happened there? What?
Yeah. Now, obviously, retrospectively, I think it was fantastic that I was shown something that was quite real, that was quite unequivocal again, that was this happens, this is real, and it gave me this sort of, if you like, a push to try and link things together.
Yeah.
And I think as life's gone on and time's gone on, this is what's come to the fore, and this is how it works.
I mean,
I love how the links were made there with both the spiritualism and the experience, because it is about having that open mind, like you're saying there, because that opens your it opens your awareness and made you start questioning and seeking those answers that then helped you. Oh, I think that's brilliant.
I was just visualizing this 16-year-old boy with all these, you know, spooky action at a distance. What is going on? And it's, you know, we're bringing experiences onto the show every week. We have a different way in, and it's just so riveting and fantastic. You know, and what it does, and Paul, what will help today is other people maybe might start noticing, not in hindsight, the synchronistic events that are leading to where you've finally come to. Okay, let's go to the next phase. What happens next after that?
Can I just ask something?
Yeah.
Ask something. When you did what you did with your hands, do you feel that was healing for the lady? And if so, where do you think that came from? Do you think that came from spirit or the universe or the ETs, perhaps? Now, do you feel?
Well, whether it came from ET or spirit, I think it's a close thing, because it was just the healing vibration and the tuning of her head that was being done, and I was just the conduit that allowed it to happen. What was good for me was that I was afterwards, obviously retrospectively, able to realize that I was shown this is how it could be done, and this and how it was done, and allowed to realize that and the implications of it. So I don't think whether it's from a spiritual or ET really makes any difference on this occasion. It was just, that is how it was. I was allowed to perceive it and allowed to experience it.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, you come in. I was just interested.
Great question. Great question.
I mean, to go, just one other thing. I know I've had several dreams when I can fly. Lots of dreams when I'm flying about, and I'm sure other people have too. But I can remember one now that's still so profound and so made a mark in my memory, if you like. And I could see I'll go on to the electromagnetic frequencies in a minute, if I may, but I could see not only the physical things that we perceive, that we deal with on a daily basis, but I could see the magnetic fields behind it. And I can remember I was flying over like a small village, and somebody had fallen, and even from a height I could see this person had damaged their ankle or whatever it was. And I went down to them, and it was a case of retuning the magnetic field to its correct alignment, and therefore somebody's healed. And I can remember just doing that, and then just flying back up and carrying on to whatever my destination was at the time. But even now, I can remember waking up and remember, I mean, I can recall it now. So the colours and everything, because you could see all the different colours in the magnetic fields, and it seemed natural, it seemed normal. And then to wake up and you're just in our normal, almost two-dimensional world, and it was like, and the loss of not having that now was like, my God, why haven't we got this?
Yeah, it's a recognition of a reality that wasn't in our conscious awareness, but now comes in, and you know it's there, and why didn't I see it before? Blah, 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 blah. And then as that starts to open, however, I've got to pull back. Can I ask you, Paul, listening to that, so could you go back to that experience with the lady in her house and the energy? And could that have been just as much for your attunement, vibration, alignment, frequency, as it was for her, for you subsequently to be able to, where we're going with the magnetic field and with the dimensions, for you to actually have that perception, that knowing? Is that at all possible?
Without question, that is definitely what happened. She was just being used to show me, I think.
Thank you.
But obviously, it's part of the synchronicity of things where it benefits both parties.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, sorry, go on. It's so interesting. Go on.
So, I'll go on to explaining magnetic frequencies.
Yeah.
We normally deal with us now have a magnetic field. Spiritualists call it your aura, but you know, when you meet somebody, when you meet somebody straight away, you will know if you get on with that person or not, because your magnetic field immediately recognizes theirs, and vice versa. So even if somebody's really nice to you, you're not always, as they say, on their wavelength, because it don't work. So everything is a magnetic field. So that's you and I. We sat here, the computer we sat in front of, the chair we sat on, the room we sat in, the building that we're in at the moment. Everything has a magnetic field that reacts with everything else. Energy cannot be destroyed. It's out there all the time. So we've gone on to your own aura, your own magnetic field that you're putting out without doing anything. But also your thoughts are an energy. So if you're putting out positive energy and positive thoughts and around positive people, that is what you attract, where negative people will attract negative things. So it's difficult. However, people have to learn to marshal your thoughts, to have to learn to sort of think about the way you're thinking almost. And it's not easy. I mean, I'm as fallible as anybody else is, But,
tell me about it.
But it's just being aware of it. And if people were aware of it more and being, better, nicer person, being able to raise their vibration by thinking nicer things, by doing things for people, by having good morals, having good ethics, that would help.
And also, again, and throw another one in the pot, it's the intention. It has a vibration, your intention. So you could really mess up, but if your intention is of a loving and kind, intention, you will attract that back. It will still work. So I'm in total agreement with that. And I always say every day, oh, it's a dark night of the soul. I'm working on it. Change your words. Don't react like that. That's wrong. It's a constant going on, that you have to work at this for you to attract back and resonate. And I will lead that where we're going to go to. For me, is if you work hard enough on what you've just spoke about, that then puts you at the right frequency or vibration for the interdimensional beings, because they don't have the belief systems and concepts and ideas and Victorian outdated ways to perceive things. So can we, on that note, because I actually know what's coming up, so I'm all excited. I'm trying to get there with his theory. His theory I resonate with.
I don't, and I can't wait.
I'm telling you. So we've done that bit. So we've moved on now to the magnetic, and we've done that. So we know where we are now, Paul. Let's get down to it.
All right then, we'll move on. So
we'll move on.
The magnetic field that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. At the top end, you've got the radio waves that we're using now, and then you come down through the infrared, and then visible light and our acoustic spectrum that we deal with all the time, and then you go down through the ultraviolet, X-rays and gamma rays. So that is our electromagnetic spectrum that the modern world that we know of works on. Now, the modern cosmologists and these other people now say that up to 95% of energy in the universe, dark matter and dark energy. So that means the bit that we know about is only 5% of what's physically available. However, if you think about it, the bit that we see and hear, the bit that we interact with, is less than 1/10 of 1% of the 5%. So there's such a tiny amount. So we've our 5% and that we know about, but then there's another 90% that we don't know about. And this is where I think ET are absolute masters at. They understand the whole of dark energy, dark matter. They understand the whole 100%. They're masters at it. They can control it. They can manipulate it. And that is why everything that we think, everything that we do, they know. And if you imagine our 5% is a record, right? An LP. So that LP, the old vinyl record, is our 5% that we're currently on. That is the physical reality that we deal with. On that record, if you imagine instead of the grooves being one song, it's all different. They're all life's lessons. So if it's God is, or if you want to call it God, but purity is the hole in the center of the record, and ego, or the dark side of things, is the edge of the record. You are somewhere in one of those grooves, whether you know it or not is irrelevant, endeavoring to reach the center by learning the lesson you're in now. So it gets more complicated than that. But that's just an easy way, a nice analogy that people can understand. That is the plane that we're on. That is the dimension that we work in.
Yeah.
Now you've got this other 95% that ET possesses, and the spiritual realms as well. So they might be a whole stack of records, and they might be 5 records above us, but they, and you will hear all the time of abductees and through the spiritual realm, people changing or lowering the vibration so that they can contact us. And that is where they're coming down from their record down to our level to be able to interact on our level. And that is why you get these, why ET can suddenly come in, can suddenly go out. I mean, it's just endless. I could go on and on and on and on about it.
Yeah, I know. It's dimensional. It's dimensional.
Absolutely.
I mean, me and Paul do agree. We do resonate with it's. You know, they're not like so many galactic light years. How the hell do they get? No, it's all in the now, and it's all dimensional. I love your analogy of the record and the grooves.
Yeah,
I like that. It's simplified. It's what it's needed, for, you know, for the layperson like me, especially. And you've got the others, the stack of records above, and how they're able to come in and go out. It's just a dimensional. I mean, normally I go that way, but actually, you know, you can go that way with the records. But
because it's, I did it that way, Gloria, because it's a way that people, because I don't like these. My book is, I've tried to write on a simple thing that anybody can pick up and understand it, which is what I wanted. Because you tend to get people that go off on a tangent and they're trying to explain things scientifically, and then people are getting bogged down and I'll just put that down. I've got to concentrate. I've got to think about it. Well, you should be able to take that on board. And go on about where you said ET, I'll use the phrase ET, was interdimensional. Well, yes, they are. However, there are a lot of ETs and there are a lot of dimensions. Now, some may be coming from outer space, because that's what it was in the 50s and 60s, and they all came from outer space. Now, as we get more technologically advanced and we're realizing that there is more to things than just our record, and there are other records as well. Science is now getting the head around that and realizing that that is the reality, even though we can't measure it as such. So going on to ET, it's easy for them to tune the frequency. There are many instances, the Robert Taylor Decmont Woods incident, where it was invisible to start with, and it slowly materialized, they could see through it. There was another one in America, the Gaffney incident, where it was seen by the police and a young couple. And the young couple said there was the outline of it first, like it was transparent. And as the UFO came towards them through the trees, it solidified and they could see it. But also, the trees burst into flames, the shrubbery burst into flames. Now, they rang the emergency services. And the police came and took the statement, the fire service came and put the fire out, but that was it, there was no other evidence. And the UFO again, just as it comes down through our frequency, next to our visible light that we see is infrared, generates heat. So it's quite logical that that is what was happening.
Yeah, yeah.
Also, talking to abductees, they will also say, using thought as energy, they also, I mean, you look, Dolores Cannon, Bud
Yeah.
Hopkins, Kath Marden, they all say, when they're talking to the abductees, everything's done by thought, because it's an energy.
Yes.
But it's an
Yeah.
energy that they can control. So, like,
Yeah.
for argument's sake, the Rendlesham Forest, where he said he put his hand to touch the UFO, and he got
Yeah.
this download. He got this.
Yeah.
It's
Straight
not,
down.
it's
Yeah.
not, yeah, because he's connecting to that mind, if you like. He's connecting to that. So you're going to get that. You're going to get that connection.
I wanted to ask you on that. Sorry to interrupt, but I want to interject and ask you. This is my truth, my perception, because being a lifelong experiencer and being slightly mature like yourself, Paul, slightly, not there yet, not old, slightly. My knowing and my truth is, and what really captured it is when you first saw the UFO, they went, "Oh, we're not supposed to be seen. That wasn't supposed to happen." And the experience that I've had, these dimensional beings, sentient beings, my truth is they've evolved too. And back in the day when it was the bolts, the nuts, the physical, and seeing them today, how it's gone through the evolution of the whole planetary system, as today, then when you mention how they pop in a reality dimension, in, out, boom, boom, cloaking, materialization, as back in, the late 40s, 50s, it was solid craft, like at Rendlesham, put your hand on it, even though there was other, how do you feel about that? Does that resonate with you, that ET, we call them ET for the generic, also has raised their raised their frequency. They've evolved simultaneously alongside us in the record stack.
Oh, without question. Yeah. I mean, you just look how far we've come in the last 100 years.
Oh God, yeah.
Not normally, if going back in England 100 years, if you wanted to get anywhere, it was the new railroads or a stagecoach. Yeah. There was the odd charabanc and the odd car about, but that was it. People didn't have their own personal transport. It just didn't happen. And nobody was, or practically nobody was flying anywhere. So just in 100 years, we've got that. We've got instant communication as we have now, talking to each other. So you look how far another race that might be 1,000 years in front of us, might be 10,000 years in front of us, but being masters of the whole of the electromagnetic spectrum and being able to use it and understand it, they can do what they like. So if something's controlled by thought, ET and their craft, for want of a better term, can go as they please. So that's why they can suddenly appear, they can suddenly disappear. That's why there's all, when they make me laugh when they're on about there was no visible flight surfaces, there was no heat plume, there was no, what a load of toss. They're not using our physics, they're using theirs. So and it's done. Because it's done by thought. It's instantaneous. So there's no G-forces, there's no speed. They're not moving. So
I agree. I agree. I was going to say you can't look at a phenomenon like this with Newtonian science and physics.
No.
You can't. I'm fully aware of craft that is operated, or vehicle that is operated by a being, and it's telepathy. It's just telepathy with the vehicle. There are no mechanics. There is nothing. It's just what we call thought, telepathy.
Yeah.
So I do concur with that. I'm also now, I think, going back to the evolution of the whole and Homo sapiens sapien, which is our experience, with the past 100 years, as you've just rightly identified, we've accelerated scientifically. We're now really understanding the magnetic field. We're now understanding energies. We have quantum physics. So we're like ready now to go online, to now connect with them. Because, 100 years ago, it was like, the beginning, so to speak. But now it is, I would, well, no, I do truly believe it's not just an individual contact, it's a collective contact, because we have now the understanding of your theory with the magnetic field and how it operates. More and more are resonating with this, brings into our awareness. And once it's in our awareness, it's our reality. What you put out, you attract. So how does that resonate with you? That your theory now, that, and I think your theory is lovely. I love the record theory. And as you discern that and look at that, and you go, oh yeah, that's quite obvious.
Yeah.
What wasn't before is that's quite obvious. Yeah. And it's not until someone brings it out and said, have you thought of this? And you go, oh, that's simple. I've always known. So at this point now, Paul, I'm going to come with the, you know, I've got to give you a difficult one, but more likely for you, it's not going to be difficult at all. We're at this point now where all experiences are speaking out. All experiences are coming out the closet. And also at the same time, those humans that thought they were not experiences are now waking up and having memories of experiences. We have it in our experiences group. So everyone, the collective seems to be coming online now. From your truth or your perception, what do you think is happening now with these interdimensional beings now in 2021? What's happening?
Right. They, going back to the stack of records, they're on the same, still the same. I think it's a universal constant where we are trying to improve ourselves to get towards that hole in the center. They're doing exactly the same. They're just on a higher frequency than us, but they still are bound by the same universal law, if you like. And I think, yes, we have the technological advances. However, we need to have the spiritual growth, which is the problem on Earth at the minute. And the problem that is, I suppose, created by the human race is the materialism and the materialistic side of it. And until that's balanced better, then it is going to be difficult for us to move forward.
We need to do the work on ourselves. This is what we need to do. You know, we've on Eternal Spirit Team Online, we've started groups. I've got a group of just for mediums practiced conscious telepathy to get these energies working with the your magnetic field to the exterior, remote viewing, all these sort of things. You know, Eternal Spirit Team Online is doing to work towards this. Do you have any suggestions? What would be really good? I mean, I always say to people, keep your eyes on the skies, and they are, and it's happening. They're seeing more and more. We call them UFOs, you know, for easiness. Any suggestions how you would recommend could help the individual connect or work on themselves about their materialism, their belief systems, their dogma, and help them understand the reality shift? Because many now are saying, well, actually, many are actually saying like your dad, which is astonishing to me. Like, yeah, I saw that being, yeah, it's fine. No response. And I'm going, why are you not responding? There's a UFO in the sky.
Yeah.
I'm throwing in multiple questions here because it's just, I know you've got the answers for us. It's like they've been so desensitized due to the fear-based films and the, you know, and the propaganda and what the government say. Yeah, we know they're unidentified, but we don't know what they are. Hello, it's obvious if they're not ours, they are ET. What could you throw into the pot to stir it up, Paul, that we could put out there to get people to think maybe slightly differently? What should they go look at? What would be an interest that, you know, because there's just so much going on at the moment. I understand, especially, you know, with the governments and what's going on in the world. What would you recommend people do to do the work on themselves or read, or apart from your book, obviously?
Well, yeah.
Read Paul's book. Paul's fantastic.
But that's the thing. The problem is that people need to understand that everything's very materialistic in our world now. And people, because that's the way the whole world's being driven, if you like, that's the direction everybody goes. And people, for want of a better term, are like sheep that will go with the flow just because people don't like putting the head above the parapet sort of thing. But you can still help yourself by sticking to those good morals, good ethics, trying to help people when you can, and just to being aware that you need to think like this, being aware to marshal your thoughts, be aware that you're not only helping somebody else, but you're helping yourself at the same time. So just being aware of that on its own is helping.
No, I'm in agreement. I mean, sorry, you know, what I like about Paul's perception is it's not just about the UFO. There are the mechanics of it. There's a deeper meaning of it. What does it mean? What does it mean to us? What does it mean to our reality? What does it mean? Why are we here? And you know, and our polarized consciousness, them and us, which is obviously the ego. So it's a deeper. And I know Paul in his book goes into his record stack. He's done it briefly today, otherwise we'll have him on here all week. But if you read Paul's book, he goes into great detail, don't you, Paul, about your theory. And when I first heard it, it was on another show, and I went, yeah, I know that. It was like, I know that. But it wasn't out there. I never uttered it. You know, it wasn't maybe acceptable before. It wasn't the time. But as soon as I heard you, I was going, I know that. And I saw the interviewer, he nearly fell off his chair. Oh my God, he said, I've never thought of this. It's so and it's you've made it approachable for the lay people, simple, and as it should be,
It's not complicated.
Natural.
And
it's
at
natural.
The end of the day, it is absolutely natural. And because people are being steered away. Now, the problem we also have is the mainstream media from, I'll say it's militaristic sort of led, because the military are responsible for our defence. So they've covered things, and they've had a lot of years of practice, and they're really good at covering them. So
they're very good.
70 years of lies and misinformation, and this has been going on, and people don't even know this has been going on, and it's just waking people up to because one of the things my colleagues said, he said, I saw a blue light in the sky, and he said, I remember your words saying, when you see something, you'll know that it's alien. You will know that it's ET.
You know, it's intuitively, you know. You know intuitively.
And that's one of the reasons. Go on.
No, I was going to say, because like with you, you know, you give the analogy of when you meet someone and that magnetic film and that you connect, When they come in, that's how you got the message. When they come in, I say to everyone, it's not an accident you see them. You feel it. There's a connection. It's meant to be. It's not like, you know, so I've interrupted again. I just get excited when he chats his stuff. Sorry. I mean, I'm just.
But go on. We'll go on. We'll use that ET when you said it's not an accident, and it isn't. They can understand. They know if you're an abductee. And forgive me, abductees that are listening. But if you're an abductee, they know your frequency. They can appear to you if they want to, and you can't do anything about it. Because they know the magnetic field, and that is how people are floated out through the ceiling or floated out through a closed door or whatever. Because the door isn't there, the ceiling isn't there, you're in a different bit. And another thing that happens is that you will constantly hear from abductees, and you get this absolute silence. And I don't mean it's just quiet. I mean it's absolute silence, because you've been taken out of off our record and moved upward, moving into their record, because they're tuning you so that they can interact with you. So therefore, there's no wind in the trees or background hum of traffic. There's nothing. It's complete silence. And this is true on the spiritual side, we hear it on cryptid reports. People that see the dog man, people that see Sasquatch and Bigfoot, and they'll say suddenly there was no birds in the trees. It was absolute silence. And it's the same with UFOs. But it's also the same on the spiritual side of things, where I believe where on a chemical level we have the fight or flight thing, where when you're in a backs in a corner and you're in that situation, you get fight or flight syndrome. One of the other things that I believe is our soul, if you like, our aura is aware on occasion when we've been moved out of our frequency, and it senses the danger. And that's when people get this, I'm not going to say irrational because it isn't, but they get this absolute terror. They get this, they're so frightened, and they say they're absolutely terrified. And that's because it comes from the psyche, it comes from your soul, and your soul knows you're not in the frequency where you would need to be. So your soul
should be.
So I think it's like a mechanism from, and that's true whether you're sort of experiencing the paranormal, UFOs, Bigfoot, whatever it is, because you're moving from the frequency that you should be in, and your soul recognizes that. So on a deep-seated level, it's like, whoa, we shouldn't be here.
I know I mean, I love it. I mean, the different dimensions, the different vinyls as you're going along, and it's true. Being a medium, and Karen knows that. At the beginning, it's like, oh, that's bad enough, and then you resonate between. I love your magnetic field resonance. I love it. But like with you were saying about with me, I'm a lifetime abductee, and one thing that has always stuck with me and really profoundly is the silence. It's not even silence. It's the atmosphere. It's nothing. And within that frequency, all things are probable and possible, whatever, to the deep materializing of walls and floating through windows, and that is, so I get that. I think what's needed, well, I mean, that sounds very arrogant. How I look at it is, at one point where UFO wasn't in our conscious reality, and then all of a sudden it's in, we open to that. With a theory like yours, how you explain it so simply, and especially in the book, that they will come into our others' reality, that they'll be able to perceive and understand these dimensional beings' realities, and that there is no need for the fear. At first, I had fear. I mean, yes, because it's an unknown, and we do fear. I'm still scared of the dark. Come on, that's childhood, flight or fright. But I think this opens up where, and I've heard many cases, and obviously Karen's husband Chris, when he first encountered a dimensional being, the first thing was fear. Oh, but then when he allowed it, then he felt this love, unconditional, and it was telepathy coming through. He dropped the fear-based soul, what you were saying.
I think it has got a lot to do with like you're saying, the acceptance of it and the trust. And the more you do that and you let those sort of barriers down, then more does come in, doesn't it? And you're able to raise your frequency.
I think, like Gloria said, it's that initial fright because you're going beyond what's comfortable. But going back to using the frequencies, because they understand it and can manipulate it, that is why we get so many stories of abductees seeing a vehicle. They don't know what it was, but it was a vehicle at the side of it. Or they saw an owl, but it was a very big owl. And you get a lot of things like that where they substitute because they can control your memory because it's an energy support.
What you understand.
So they know they can control what you remember. They can control whether you remember anything at all or nothing. And we'll just take, for argument's sake, the more recent revelations with Calvin Parker and his new books that Phillips done, Blind Disc Press. Calvin only naturally remembered the one abduction with Charlie Hickson in 1973 in Pascagoula. But then through research at Kath Martin, he'd actually had 4. He'd actually had 2 abductions before that one, and he'd had another one since, but he doesn't remember those.
Yeah.
So it's what they can control, how you remember and what you remember.
I mean, I've discussed this with many. I mean, I have no fear, and I don't see it as being paralyzed. I know it's how it's supposed to be, because my physical vibration is not doesn't resonate with their magnetic vibration. However, one thing that has come to through research and going on this road is they are a telepathic civilization, and it's normal for them to do all the things that they do. There is no harming. There's no you can't control anybody between them. You can't dominate. You can't do anything like that. They don't have a polarized. They know they're experiencing their individual consciousness from the source. However, they are one with the source. We as a civilization still at this moment are starting to awaken to this. So when they come to us and people say, they took you against your will, and I said, no, I couldn't stop it. However, it's natural, and it's going to be natural for me. I knew at some point it's going to be natural in my evolution of consciousness and of the whole of Earth, humanity, but we are going to that. So it seems you can start to polarize it. Oh, well, you can't stop them doing this. Get rid of that. You don't need to. Actually, every time they interact with an experiencer, they are losing what I would call the human vibration, and it's oscillating, going up and up, and you get to the point where it's natural to do this. You don't have to. They don't think I'm coming to get you. They don't. It doesn't exist in their world. It doesn't. It's a natural progression of consciousness to evolve to a collective, and at the moment, my truth could change tomorrow, who knows, to a collective, telepathic, kind, humanitarian, loving, non-judgmental, non-material civilization like the other sentient beings are. I mean, look at our history. We need it. The only, people that fear ET, I fear humans more than I fear ET.
Yeah, quite right.
If I'd say if ET wanted to harm us, they've had eons to do it. They're not here to do that. Come on. The only ones harming ourselves.
The other thing, well, when you look at how the media portray things, where people were, and it's always big headlines, and they were attacked by this, and they did it, and it's always has a negative connotation to it.
Always.
And it doesn't necessarily all. But the other thing is not having the memory of what I say in the book is not having the memory of the whole experience. Is that in reality a bizarre act of kindness that they don't want us to remember because it would do us more harm than good. So
I agree.
And one of the things that Calvin said, on the one that he could naturally remember, was he remembers the voice in his head saying, "We meant you no harm."
Yeah.
And so, like we would look through a woodland and we'd capture birds and ring them and wave them and make sure they're doing all right and then let them go.
Yeah.
They're doing exactly the same, but they're not letting us remember 95% of it, so that they don't.
Absolutely. No, I agree. I mean, humans, we hunt people. If we find a new island somewhere, we experiment on them with drugs. We chop them up. We do whatever we need to do to find out who they are. Our history, we need to shut up, because our history is barbaric. We go and, massacre millions at a time. And they don't do that. And I do agree with you. And I being me, Gloria, when I get onto this subject, the analogy I give is they don't want us to recall the certain parts of the experience, because our vibration, we still perceive in a negative fear-based vibration, and we would perceive that as a negative, because we're not ready yet to have to use discernment to understand how closely by DNA and interconnected we are. And I use it as, well, obviously, Paul, you can't because you're not a woman, well, you could be, but, and I say to women that's had children, you know, when you go through that labor and it's like 1,000 deaths, your spine's being sliced a bit, your stomach's on fire, it is torture. It is the worst torture in the whole of torture. But you don't perceive it as a negative. You go and do it again for the joy of the unconditional love that you're about to bring in to your world. I did it 6 times. So that's how I use my cognitive distance, to work it that way by analogy. We're not ready to understand the procedures, okay? We're not ready to, because we have got such, we are so fearful of our own selves. We lack. We're scared to speak up. We've got no trust in who we are. And in fact, I always say, we do say, don't we, Karen? We are spiritual beings, dimensional, interdimensional, whatever you want to say, or even God consciousness or Christ consciousness. It doesn't matter. But we are a spiritual being having a human experience. Yeah. We're not the human. We're not the beliefs that were given to us. We're not the religions. Yeah, we're coming to experience that. And now with these beings coming in and more, and the experiences are different now. They're like a knowing of the magnetic field, of the sciences, the downloads. There are so many people getting like light codes. They're drawing, you know, like on the Venetian forest, the things that they saw, they're drawing, they're just coming straight down. So we've evolved to that stage now. I'm just very optimistic. I don't do negative Nellies. I can't do a negative Nelly. You know, I think we're now at this point, if we can just grasp the science of what's happening between our energy and their energy, which is in Paul's book. We will put the link up later where to get it. Then I think there's more chance of the negative Nellies perceiving it different than it was before. That's just me. Not that anyone else.
The other thing, though,
passionate.
Looking at that from ET's point of view, we'll use that as a phrase, but ET,
yeah,
from their morals and their ethics, they don't want to be doing us harm anyway, because it reflects on their life and their lesson. So it's not good for them, so they won't do that if they can possibly help
it. They won't, no. We're perceiving it, our perception is wrong to the experience. As Wayne Dyer said, change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. If you perceive it in a negative way, that's what you're going to get back to you. And that will block you down in a fear-based experience. I'm not saying it's easy, but I think if people can start to understand what we call the science, I know it's a scary word, go to Paul's record stack. If we can start to understand energy a bit better in layman's terms, this is what we need to do. I did the quantum physics. It's not as easy as to explain quantum physics as it is your vinyls. That is so simple, you know. So, you know, this has to be the way. I think people then would be less fearful of what is unknown. I mean, with what the government's doing, trying to control, they're not even leaks. They're doing this because they have an agenda. But many people still are in fear. And you just know if the governments do, I don't think they're going to do it now. It was possibly on the cards, but I could be wrong. If the government do a false flag, like ET is bad, you know, okay, it's just going to reinforce this opposition, this polarity. and it's not going to be good for the human race, and it's going to take us a little bit longer to get where we need to be. However, if people could just open up to an understanding, the deeper conversation is needed, is how are we connected to them? What is this energy we speak that Paul talks about, if they haven't heard of quantum physics and all that? So I think the area, and what is telepathy? I mean, I do the teaching of telepathy and remote viewing. What is it? So it's not about the actual action of telepathy or remote viewing. It's about using the energy you have within, which is a natural, innate communication. And the more you use that, then you can connect better with these dimensional beings. I've got to say, guys, you've got to get Paul's book, because he makes it so simple. Karen, I chatted for England. I'm very passionate, as you know. I love the sound of my own voice. No, seriously, Karen, please, any questions for Paul? Because I could chat for England.
So, Paul, have you continued to have that individual experience and contact with UFOs, ETs? Are you continuing to have those conscious ones, or was it just from that, or how? Like what's happening with you now?
I dare say, as far as I can normally recollect, that's the only time I've had anything speaking in. Now, I have had other experiences where I've been talking about something and words have sort of come into my mouth, like they've been speaking, you know, but all I've seen,
channeling.
Yeah, so many. Even last week, I've got a Facebook page called It's the Real Story. And when I'm doing any sky watching, or I'm outside, or we see anything or anything interesting, I'll put it on there. And only this last week gone, saw 3 UFOs in the sky, and I actually managed to get a picture of one. Now, unfortunately, my laptop with my card reader on, for some Microsoft reason, can't stand Microsoft. It's so many damn problems with it. But anyway, that's another story. So at the moment, I'm not able to download the picture. However, there were 3 which I initially took as helium balloons, and it was my wife also. We were looking. I've got apps on my phone for everything, so I know where the space station is, where the planets are, all the aircraft are. So I know if I look at something, I know what it is or what it isn't. So we were watching, it was actually a Lufthansa flight going from Frankfurt to New York. And my wife said, I wonder where that's going. So I can just go, there you go, it's going from that. And as we're looking at the aeroplane, and there was a small contrail behind it that was dissipating, clear blue skies as there are now. And we saw the light behind it. And it was like, whoa, look at that. And then we noticed there was another one. And then there was another one. And there were 3. And they moved position relative with each other, but not in the way that balloons would. But also the other thing was, although they appeared like just a very round, shiny helium balloon, if you like, they were behind the contrail, behind some of the high cirrus cloud that were there. So they were obviously quite large, but a very long way off. And they moved. Now I had time to run in the house, get the camera. And from our position, we're about 5 miles south of Leeds, and then looking due north from where our position, right over Leeds city centre, but obviously way past that in the distance. I managed to get a photograph because the camera wouldn't focus because they were so small and it's such big blue sky. But I did manage to get one, so I will upload it onto my site onto my Facebook page when I can.
Yeah, brilliant.
But I don't honestly. I've had lots.
Many people.
I've got videos. I've got pictures.
I was going to say it normally isn't just a one-off. Even if you don't consciously remember, if there's been contact from a child, it's continuous the whole lifetime. It will always continue. You just don't have conscious memory. And
I think, by the sounds of it, it's almost like you don't. Like Paul, you don't need any more.
Doesn't need it, exactly.
Of it, because just from that one experience you had, that has kicked off that series of finding things out, making your own theories, working for stuff outside.
Karen, you hit the nail on the head there, because of your experiences and because of where you are on your journey, if you like. You get the Louis Elizondo that are doing the disclosure in America and all the other things. And it's totally irrelevant. You're never, ever going to get complete disclosure from governments. You'll get the drip feed now, and they'll make us aware that they're aware of it. But you'll never find out about Roswell. You'll never find out about Rendlesham Forest, because it will just prove that they've been complicit in covering up for so long. So you said, Karen, is absolutely correct. You get to that stage where I'm not interested. I need to move forward from that. I'm way beyond that now. And I don't mean that in a sort of bad way, in a big-headed way. It's just that's how your thoughts move. That's how okay, that's somebody else who's experienced it. Are they bringing in anything new, any more pieces to the pie instead of just another pie? You know, we need to know.
Yeah, exactly.
The bigger picture.
Yeah, I mean, I just listen and go, that's their journey, that's their experience, that's their, and it gets to the point now. It's just I can't even explain it. Karen did hit the nail on the head there. You don't, in my case, I'm careful what I say, don't really need to be abducted anymore, even though there was a recent, I don't like the word abducted. I had an experience, but you and like you, I'm talking, and it's happening not just to me, others. I'm talking, and then someone else is this information. I'm going, am I that clever? How did I? And it just, and downloads, if you want to use it. I think that seems to be a very common thing. And in the groups, people are getting downloads. Humans are getting these downloads from nowhere. They're getting information and knowing from nowhere. So I think I could say I'm happy to say the sort of physical abductions are in the past. They've evolved, we've evolved, because our frequency has shifted, that we don't need to go through that experience no more. We've moved past it. It's like learning to ride a bike. You keep falling over, you cut your knees, it bloody hurts until you move past it. So I think we're at the point now where it's more of a, I keep saying it's more of a telepathic understanding of the energies and magnetic field, where we would just know and resonate with each other, and we just don't need the others on their journey. I can't say any more on the subject, because it's just it's for me, it's like intangible to even articulate it. I can't get it out what is there. Does that make sense to you? Sometimes you just can't speak it, what you know, and you try and find a way.
For me, I always say that's an age thing, Gloria.
Oh, do you know what I mean? I could use that. Well, I don't know. It is a bit of an age thing. It is a bit of an age thing, but I can't. It's the passion, the excitement that I'm feeling in the groups, that others are feeling about all of this. And they open their front door and there's nothing out there in the media, and there's nothing out there on the news. And they're going, but this is our reality now. So it's like we've shifted. We're having these shows, and those who are supposed to be in control are not even working with us on it. It's just, they're just not interested at all. Still, what would it take, Paul, for if it needs to happen?
I think a collective shift, because we are getting a lot more sightings.
We are.
And I think you'll get to a stage where we will get to a tipping point eventually.
Well, I mean, everyone is seeing more UFOs, and you can only go on and deny for so long. Maybe that will be the way. I mean, really, it's totally irrelevant, even though I asked the question, but it's an irrelevant question because it really doesn't matter. That sounds a bit paradoxical, but I have to ask the questions, obviously, for the show. Karen, have you got another amazing question to ask?
Sorry, I had to mute myself because We've got some work going on in the kitchen, and the dog was barking.
Oh, that's all right. That's all right.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask one question. It's I don't know if it's just me trying to get my head around it, but if the ETs or interdimensionals are working on this telepathy way of communicating and being able to shift from place to place, what do you feel is the need for the craft? Why do we see them in craft in the sky when they could just be there consciously? What's the difference? If you do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, because there are, like we say, on the stack of records, on the higher end you'll have light beings that don't need craft, where if we were traveling in different things, you need craft, and they're the same. But because they're controlled by thought, everything, they just move their physical energy within that craft to wherever it is that's controlled by thought. So it makes no difference if it's through space, if it's through water, through the lakes and the oceans, through our atmosphere. It's irrelevant, because they're not feeling that. Their craft isn't part of it. They're in a different place altogether. So it's only when they're moving through our visible spectrum that we actually see it. I mean, you still get instances of, especially when involved with aircraft, where they're seen on radar and not seen with the naked eye, or seen with the naked eye, but there's nothing on the radar. You do still get that, and it's just the frequency that they're on. So I believe that yes, there are light beings, if you like, because there are people. There's so many of those records, and people, apart from going up the stack of records, have to go in towards the center as well. So part of reaching that is you don't need craft of any description. You are energy, an energy being, if you like. However, when you're not at that stage, you still need something to move about in. You still need some form of transport. But
So
they
it's
are
that
part
evolution
of
of the different dimensions, isn't it?
Yeah, it's part of the whole. They are part of it. You know,
That was very elegantly put. That was really, you did good there. I couldn't have done that. I've no way. I'm struggling with words recently. That was really simple. Thank you.
Not saying anything.
So that was good question, and on we've gone into overtime. That was a really good. No, so well, we always do with experiences. We always go into overtime. Always. How can you not? It ends with a really good question and a fantastic answer, Paul. Thank you so much for coming onto the show and sharing your knowing. We will put your links up, how to access your book. And what is your book called? My brain's gone. Show the book. What's it called? UFOs, the Real Story. Okay. We'll put the link up on Open Minds, and I highly recommend you get hold of Paul's book and read his theory, the vinyl record theory. It is just so, you're all going to go, oh yeah, and then you got it. That's all you need. You don't have to worry about the science for now. Thank you so much. It's just been wonderful. And if you write any more books or anything major happens in your life, please come, let us know, come back on the show and share it with the community. I'm trying to get more UK experiences as I can, because most of them are like, I've got Yossi coming from Israel, God bless him, in 2 weeks. He's in Israel, Tel Aviv. I've got Suzanne Chancellor, bless her, from America. She's on next week. And I keep saying, I know there's UK experiences out there somewhere. I mean, I found Paul. So if you know of any, let us know. So it's wonderful. And thank you so much. It's just been fantastic. It's been lovely. Okay, guys, what's going to happen now? Karen's going to put Paul in the naughty room.
I'm not. I can't put him in the naughty room because he's come directly on the link.
Oh, you can't put him in the naughty room. You can't stay there.
Let me try it.
No, don't.
Just it is saying remove. So
no, stay there. Oh, because you came in on a direct link. That's why. Normally we have the naughty room where we put the guests to at the end of the show.
I might be able to, because it does say remove.
No, don't remove him. Don't remove him. Not yet. No. You can stay a bit longer. Oh, okay. We're babbling on here. Okay, guys. Thank you for today. Sorry about the technical issues earlier on. Next week we have another amazing experiencer. She is awesome. Suzanne Chancellor, and she'll be joining us. And I'm not going to give too much away because I really like the experiences to speak their truth. It's not about my interpretation of it. And she'll be sharing her focus on contact and abduction. And she has a mind full of information as well, a different perspective. That's what we need, a lot of diversity. Whatever resonates with you, you know, we're going to offer that up. So, Karen, thank you for stepping in for your husband today. And obviously, women's power. Thank you, everybody, for watching us. Remember, you can rewatch the show live on, rewatch the live show on YouTube later and on our page, Open Minds. And we will next week with Suzanne, because of the time difference with America, the show will be out next Sunday, the 20th at 6 p.m. UK time. So put it in your diaries, guys. 6 p.m. next Sunday. It's not an a.m. We've had to cater for the time zone. It's amazing, Karen. Sometimes like with Roxanne, she's like a couple of hours in one part of America, but Suzanne is like 8 to 9 hours. I mean, it really does put into perspective how vast America is for the time zone.
Yeah.
So, you know, next week. So it should be Chris Shearer next week. It's a 6 p.m. one. So Chris will be back joining us for Open Mind. So everybody, thank you so much. And we will see you next week at 6 p.m. Bye for now. Bye, Karen.
Thank you.
She's going to press the button. She's going to cut us off. Technical stuff today.